Good morning to our professor, Dr. Martha Manet Madrid, and to my fellow classmates. Today, I am going to discuss the Filipino monolingual dictionaries and the development of Filipino lexicography by Aldrin Lee. To give you a background about Aldrin Lee, I am presenting this news article about him being the new elected president of LSP, or the Linguistic Society of the Philippines. According to Lee, with his background in theoretical linguistics, he intends to push for the place of Philippine linguistics and the Philippine languages in general linguistic theorizing during his term. He is an advocate of linguistic human rights, that is the right to identify with one's own mother tongue and the right to education and public services through the medium of it. As LSP president, Lee envisions the formulation of a descriptive framework that could aptly account for the distinctive features of Philippine-type languages. Lee also intends to forge collaborations between LSP and other linguistic societies in Asia, especially Taiwan, Singapore, Japan, and Korea. The department hopes that with his election as LSP president, Lee will be able to forge new networks and strengthen existing connections between and among institutions that promote the study and appreciation of Philippine languages. He will serve until March of 2024. So the aim of this study is to tackle the development of writing Filipino dictionaries and to provide a preliminary discussion of the development of monolingual lexicography of Filipino. The examination of these dictionaries is done by applying lexicographic principles in writing monolingual dictionaries. According to Lee, the study found several errors in the writing of these dictionaries and concludes that such errors were primarily due to the lack of substantial corpus collection. This study attempts to decipher the development of writing Filipino dictionaries and analyze the three of the most current Filipino monolingual dictionaries based on existing lexicographic principles. Let us first define or present the difference of bilingual to monolingual dictionaries. A bilingual dictionary provides a translation or explanation using another language, a language you are very familiar with, usually your native language, while a monolingual dictionary explains the meaning of a word in the language that you are learning. So you have to ask yourselves this question: which is better for language learners, monolingual or bilingual dictionary? Okay. We go to the next slide. So another difference of the two dictionaries: bilingual dictionaries translation focused and monolingual dictionaries would be definition focused. And if we put it in Filipino language, it says, ang leksikografiya ay isa sa pinakamahalagang puwersa sa pag-unlad ng Filipino. Ask yourselves again this question: why do you think so? So according to Lee, the necessity of the research or his study comes from the fact that no single study has been done explaining the development of monolingual lexicography of Filipino. That is why he conducted this, to serve as a guide to those who have plans to either write or acquire a Filipino dictionary. So let us tackle the development of Filipino lexicography. In 1987, the Philippine Constitution states that the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. As it evolves, it shall be further developed and enriched on the basis of existing Philippine and other languages. Let us understand that before our Constitution decided this matter legally, and before they settled about the issue of our national language, It undergoes several processes and debate by our scholars in the country. Let us look into it. Who are the Filipino scholars who contributed this particular knowledge? So first we have Cesar Hidalgo. Part of his discussion is on Philippine lexicographic tradition, where he mentions the numerous lexicographic works written as part of the campaign to develop a Philippine national language. His most interesting point, however, is his pessimistic view about the Institute of National Language, Diksyonaryo ng Wikang Filipino, which at the time was still an ongoing project. In page 73 of his work, he boldly stated that Wikang Filipino, the entries in this dictionary come from Tagalog, Kapampangan, Cebuano, Bicol, Samar, Leyte, Ilocano, Hiligaynon, Pangasinan, and the so-called major languages at Tausug, Maranao, Maguindanao, Ibanag. That the SWP calls this Filipino is ridiculous. Obviously, they know that all they are attempting to do is write a multilingual dictionary, or do they? So in his statement, Hidalgo seems to be very doubtful of the feasibility of a national language coming from different languages. He also claims that if and when created, this national language should be a language no Filipino speaks natively. He even makes a remark that those who push for Filipino in the Constitutional Convention have done disservice to the Filipino people. And then the second one, we have in a paper read in the National Conference on Lexicography, Pambansang Komperehensya sa Lexicograpía in November 2003, Virgilio Almario, the editor of the UP Diccionaryong Filipino, reveals that one of the motivations behind the writing of this dictionary is the failure of the Commission ng Wikang Filipinos, then LWP, in 1989, Diksyonaryo ng Wikang Filipino, to represent the true Filipino. So let's have this. According to Virgilio Almario, nito lamang 1989, nalathala ang Diksyonaryong Filipino ng Surian. Nakagugulat na ang kapal nito na may 696 pahina at naglalaman ng 31,244 batayang salita, 12,743 derivatibo, at 1,384 salitang idiomatiko. Sinimulan ito di umano bilang Diksyonaryong Tagalog sa panahon ni Julian Cruz Balmaceda. Pinayaman at matagal nang natapos, ngunit hindi agad na ipailumbag dahil sa kawalan ng pondo. Ngunit, sadyang tila pinakapal lamang itong Diksyonaryong Tagalog ni Balmaceda. May pamagat man itong Diksyonaryong Filipino, ay imposible itong maging gayon sapagkat ni walang entry na nagsisimula sa letrang F o mga entry na ginamitan ng mga panukalang bagong titik ng alpabeto nitong 1987. So in Almario's statement, entail another challenge, that is to verify such a failure and to come up with a new set of assessments and evaluation of these three dictionaries that currently represent the most extensive efforts in Filipino lexicography. So according to Lee, Filipino lexicography supposedly set about during the time when the idea of a national language became a national issue. So dictionaries are seen to have massive influence in the eventual standardization of a language, and the development of these dictionaries is an inevitable concern in language planning and in formulation of language policies. So we have here, Sibayan, though did not discuss in detail the LWP's dictionario, which at the time had already been published. He only pointed out the supposed purist attitude of the Institute, prevalent in the 1989 dictionario, that according to him had delayed the standardization of Filipino orthography The institute insisted on a 20-letter abacada or alphabet, discarding the letters C, F, J, G, V, X, and Z, simply because these letters are borrowed from sounds that are not existing in Philippine languages. This is actually the most popular criticism against the LWP's 1989 dictionary. But the Institute was quick in restoring the letters, for these were already included in the centennial edition of the Diccionario. So we have it here, the methodology. The study of Aldrin Lee utilizes the various principles of lexicography in scrutinizing the contents of 3 dictionaries. In particular, Sidney Lando's dictionaries, The Art and Craft of Lexicography, 2001, was used to ascertain the different principles of defining and other essential issues that must be taken into account when writing dictionaries. Hidalgo's Philippine Lexicography, from 1521 to present, was also consulted for reference purposes. So another would be, this study of Lee dissects the 3 dictionaries, adheres to the basic principles of monolingual lexicography, focusing on the principles that govern definition styles. An entry word definition is the most vital information that a monolingual dictionary provides, and that the dictionary efficacy highly depends on whether or not entry words are vividly rephrased using the same language. So in addition to basic principles of defining, Lando's list of good defining practices is also utilized. This includes the following: avoid circularity, and to define every word used in definition, the lexicographer must presuppose that in a monolingual dictionary, the reader has the right to expect that if they do not know the meaning of a word, they can look the word up and find it defined. So Lando regards the avoidance of circularity as an indispensable defining principle, since circularity violates the main purpose of a dictionary, which is to inform the reader what a particular word means. The other good defining practices for Lanzo include the priority of essence, a reflection of grammatical function, simplicity, brevity, and avoidance of ambiguity. So what would be your definition style? The definition should not only be simple, but also be brief. Okay, the last defining practice pointed out by Lando emphasizes the avoidance of polysemous words to be used in the definition. Simplicity here entails exclusion of the difficult words in definitions of simple ones, since doing otherwise would cause the reader waste of time looking for the meanings of the mind-blogging words used in the definition. So we have it here. The manuscript of the dictionary had been completed for quite a long time, but was not published due to lack of funds. The original number of entry terms was 26,835, but this was subsequently increased with new terms derived from textbooks, newspapers, magazines, and other print media. Considering synonyms, idioms, and colloquial expressions, dialectical variants, and slang also did improvement. Basic terms used in science and technology had been included as well. All in all, the dictionary had a total of more or less 31,244 entry terms. If one will include the derivatives and idioms, the total entries would be more or less 627,592 entries. Well, too much. So we have it in here. The front matters include a foreword, a comprehensive guide on how to use the dictionary and dictionary statistics. The guide in using the dictionary includes an abbreviation list of 12 categories: the parts of the speech, the idiom, the synonym, and etc. Symbols use brackets used to separate the root word, angled open and closed parentheses, and for the illustratives, a slash for spelling variants. It also includes a detailed explanation about the entry word's pronunciation, parts of its speech, illustratives, derivatives, idioms, synonyms, or syllabication spelling, and morphophonemic changes as well. And then, as seen in number 7, inflected or derived entries are immediately followed by the root words enclosed in brackets. In case of consecutive derivatives having the same root word, only the first one is provided with the root words in brackets. So of the other guide topics, syllabication and morphophonemic changes have the most detailed explanation. These topics are very basic, nothing new for somebody who has been studying Filipino since grade 1, but helpful for someone who has a hard time understanding the accent and the morphophonemic changes in Filipino. The part on statistics seems to be useful for a dictionary reviewer, but not much to a dictionary user. As a matter of fact, the statistics only provide the number of entries per letter, sorted into entry words, derivatives, idioms, and nothing else. And then the idea of giving the root word immediately after the inflected or derived entry word is a good decision, but restricting it only the first derived inflected entry in the case of consecutive entries with the same root word is not a good idea. In the case of the entries presented, only a buhan is provided with a root word because among the inflected forms, it comes ahead in the alphabetical arrangement. But scenarios like this create confusion because an underived or uninflected entry from following an inflected derived entry word might be reanalyzed to have undergone the same affixation process. A particular example is abukay, which might be reanalyzed and an affixed form of abo. Okay, so another one, as shown in the entry terms, the entry word is normally preceded by the abbreviated part of speech, except in the case of inflected or derived forms like kalmutin, which is immediately followed by the root word. Illustratives are added to almost all entry terms. And then another, the definition style employed in this dictionary is generally fine, except a few cases of circular definitions and the use of words that are far less common than the entry term being defined. Okay, so the most popular criticism about this dictionary is the fact that its authors have discarded many letters already, considered as part of the Filipino alphabet during that time. Using Filipino with a letter F in the title of the dictionary, despite the lack of an entry in this letter, utterly ruins this dictionary's consistency and credibility. It may lead the reader to generalize that the Filipino referred to in these dictionaries is still Tagalog-based and is not true representative of Filipino as mandated by the 1973 and the 1987 constitutions. The necessity of the inclusion of the 8 letters in the new alphabet need not be established here. It is clear that they are needed to accommodate sounds from native languages in the Philippines or from foreign languages from which words are borrowed into Filipino. And then the currency of the usage of dictionaries entry terms might therefore be questioned because they might already be non-existent at the time the dictionary was published. The dictionary should therefore have clear mechanisms in identifying non-existent or obsolete terms. A good corpus in lexicography should set a particular frequency level for a term to be considered an entry in a dictionary. Otherwise, these terms might be included, but they should be marked to indicate that they are non-existent, or they are words used in an older stage of the language. And then we also have, it includes a linguistic map of the Philippines, the country's physical features, list and classification of the country's provinces, cities, municipalities, and many others. Though interesting to read, the totality of the back matter just seems to be too much to be included in a monolingual dictionary like this. So the manuscript of this dictionary had been completed for quite a long time, but was not published due to lack of funds. Okay. And then here it is. If you wish to collaborate with Sir Aldrin Lee, you have these particular details here, the email address. So you can contact him if you have questions and you want to discuss matters with him. So that ends my report. Thank you so much for listening to my talk.